Great. Okay.
All right. Going to show the road then. So, some of them may be here because you intentionally came to this class and you know what the class is about. Some of you may be here because you showed up for education day and you have no idea what this class is about. But here we are. So, quick question. This is really about how to leverage data and how to leverage what's going on in the company. Before I start to ramble, I want to know what important questions do you have that you want, what important conversations do you want covered today? Is there a burning question like, what conversations are you having with sellers at the moment? What are you having with buyers? What are you seeing in the market? Like, is there any burning question? Totally okay for isn't. I want to make sure I cover everything.
Buyers ask whether or not it's smart to buy now.
Okay. Going to put buyer smart. Go ahead.
Any incentives to move listings with the current interest rates in the market, or what kind of incentives can sellers offer to move a product like?
Okay. And tactics on.
Especially new construction, and tactics.
Okay. Cool. Anything else?
What neighborhoods are the hottest right now?
Okay. You always spell neighborhoods weird. Is that the American way of saying it? Yeah, there's no you. Not you. Anything else? Yeah, we think you're in everything. I mean, we create the language, we're not going to go.
Oh, stop.
Anything else? All right.
Maybe just how you would approach like interest rates. I have buyers who, which it makes sense to me, they want to just save more because right now it's expensive to borrow the money from the bank. If you save more, put them down.
Okay.
Just chat about that.
So I'm going to write this down. I have a memory of sieve. So if I point to it and just remind me again, ready? Okay. So I have been in the business for 8 years, part of my canteen. The first 8 years I was just figuring it out, still trying to figure it out. One thing I heard at family reunion. I haven't been in the business for 8 years. I've been in the first year 8 times. Every single year is different, right? So about year 3, year 5, after the market peaked in 2021, and that famous saying, "Boats rise on a rising tide," right? It was so easy to list. It was so easy to sell. I think a lot of us took that for granted. I know someone who entered the business. I was like, job is easy, like, let's go. I thought that was the way it was. I didn't realize that was such an anomaly in terms of what was going on in the market. So then I knew I had to step my game up because I started to become stable and just, I was hitting a certain number every year, but I wanted to break through that. So I started to ask ways of what can I do better, and obviously lead generation, that's the first and only thing that's important. However, how can I convert highest price points, right? So my goal is to try and do 50 transactions a year, max that out at 50 transactions a year, but I want the price point to be much higher. So I was like, what do I need to do? What type of clientele am I going to be in front of? And for the most part, this is a generalization. It's just what I have found. For the most part, the higher the price point, the more they care about this stuff. Brian Feeney talks about it all the time. The first thing they want to make sure is, are you competent? Then are you confident? You show up to a listing appointment and you have all confidence, but they don't think you can do the job, you're not going to get it. You first need to show that you're competent at what you do, and then deliver that with confidence and say, I know what to do in this situation. That's why I really started to look at what's happening in the market. I was also cool because every time I saw something on the news, I would see a headline about what's going on in the housing market, and then I would say, well, we're not experiencing that in Philly. And I didn't know what really I was looking at. So that's why I've dived into it, and I have found it has helped my business amazingly. And trust me, I used to be one of those people, especially in 2021. I showed up very unprepared. I would get the listing because my British accent usually helps. Then I knew I could just talk, right? And I knew like every salesperson can figure their way out in situations. I knew that wasn't going to get me to the next level. So I knew I had to know more about the market. So that's the reason why I've dived into it. That's the reason why I wanted to do a talk like this today. Because I do believe that it will help you get to the next level, and we should know it. It's like going to a financial advisor that doesn't know what's going on in the stock market. That was my train of thought. My train of thought was I used to be one of those agents that was like, it's all about relationships, it's all about relationships, it's all about. So I didn't want to talk about market data because for me, I'm an attention span of a fish, that's boring, right? So I would just harp over that. However, I have found, and I know that whenever I've spoken to an agent that says I just go in and just be me, I'm like, that's good, and that's great to be authentic, but it won't get you every listing. You have to know this stuff. You really do. So I'm going to go through this. I have asked at the beginning what important questions I have. We will touch on that. Hopefully, we'll touch on everything. I'm just going to make sure I look at my notes. So, where do I get my data from? I have looked at, not hundreds, it's an exaggeration. I've looked at many sites and said, what's good data? There are tons of doom and gloomers out there. They are people that just want clickbait and they say that everything is failing, the world's ending, and you kind of, once you start looking, going through these, you start to see which ones are delivering market reports because of clickbait, and then which ones actually know what they're talking about. The two I have found, well, it's actually just one, but two sources that I use, and it's expensive. I think one's like $100 a month, the other one's $200 a month. One's the Housing Wire. Housing Wire Daily is fantastic. It gives you bite-sized information of what's going on nationally and what's affecting like rates and what sort of stuff. I found that they're the best at doing it. They're not doom and gloomers. They deliver the news as is. I always find their stuff really helpful. The second and most important one is this. It's Altos Research. This is the expensive one. So this is about $200 a month. I would never, this will probably be one of the last things I would ever give up if I had to go back on my budget. I use this at listing appointments all the time. I use it, it gives weekly live data. So you are getting fresh news of what's on the market. So, you know, something I always say, listing appointments. People say to me, well, I watched CNBC the other day and it said this. And I'm like, yeah, congratulations, CNBC is about 2 months behind. Because they are. We are the ones that have the best market data because we are out on the streets every single day. We're having conversations with buyers, we're having conversations with sellers. So I like Altos Research because it gives you the most up-to-date. It updates every single week, and there's tons of ways that you can play with it. I don't have my thing here, so I don't use this. I'll get my big head out of the way in a second. Let's start with basics. I'm sorry if you already know this. Yeah, this is the way I always try to dumb it down. I've done it myself. I try to dumb it down so I can explain it as simply as possible to the consumer, and I don't try to overwhelm them. I always say it's good to overwhelm them a little bit. It's bad to confuse them. So if you go into this like you're talking to a real estate economist, you're losing them. You want to be dangerous enough to know that you can explain what's happening in the market in 2 lines, right? 2 sentences. So let's start off with the 3 markets. This is the #1 metric, and this is what I'm saying to sellers. This is the #1 metric we use. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Or is it a balanced market? Buyer's market, and this is the way I explain inventory. I say, you ever heard of months of inventory? They're like, no. I'm like, all right, let me tell you, long story short, this is what it means. If not another home hit the market today, and all we had what was left to sell that's currently on the market, if you look at the average like days on market, how long each one is pending, it will give you an idea of how many months it would take us to get rid of our inventory. So if that number is 3 months or less than 3 months, it is a seller's market. Well, actually, some would say it goes all the way up to 5 months, probably 5 months. So 0 to 5 months, that's a seller's market. 5 to 7 months is a balanced market, which is insane because we haven't had that in Philly for 4 years. We have had low inventory problems for 4 years. So 5 to 7 is a balanced market, and then anything north of 7 months of inventory is a buyer's market. So that's how I explain it, dumb it down right to the easiness. There's 3 types of markets: buyers, sellers, and a balanced market. Right now, Philly has historically been in a seller's market. So what I look at is inventory and the absorption rate. Does anyone know what absorption rate is?
Yeah, but you just described.
Yeah.
Like equilibrium, and then whether or not it's a seller's or buyer's market.
Yeah, it's just how many homes are getting absorbed off the market, right? So out of all the inventory, is it 40%, 30, 20%?
But where did you get 5 from? 0 to 5, and then because it's usually 3 months is equilibrium for absorption rate. Where did you get 5?
Well, that's just inventory. So I'm not talking about absorption rate because you'll see like here, we have very low inventory, but our absorption rate is high. So I'm specifically talking about like when I'm talking about buyers, sellers, and a healthy market, purely talking about the amount of inventory. It's more complicated than that, but that's the easiest way to explain it, right? It's like supply and demand. Simple. There's no supply, there's more demand, right? There's more demand, no supply.
Are you assessing absorption rate by zip codes or by the city generally?
I do it by the county, the city. I find that I try to dive into like zip codes in neighborhoods and neighborhood data and zip code data. It can be really skewed. Like if you go down Society Hill, there's like 20 townhomes on the market. The median, like if you look at the history of the median price, they just keep on going like up and down, up and down. So I try to do it at county level. Some people do ask for zip codes, never do it by neighborhoods, and say to them, I don't do it by neighborhoods because there just isn't enough data to give us an accurate picture of what's going on. So here's something just to look at. The blue line is 2023, green line is 2024, and the black line is 2025. This is pretty specific. So number one that I want to get into is you need to tell, or you should tell your clients, listen, what's going on nationally is completely different than what's going on a local level. You hear what's going on nationally in CNBC. CNBC is saying there's 20% more inventory year over year over the last 3 years. That is not the case in Philadelphia. So that's when you really become an expert, because you're saying, I know what's going on national, but let's be hyper focused on what's going on locally. You'll see what's going on locally. We have no inventory. This is actually going down. The only year that was lower in the last, I think it's like 7 years, the only year that was lower was 2022. And that's probably because there was so much inventory taken off the shelf in 2021, they had really struggled in 2022. So look, we have 2,126 homes available this week. This is single family townhomes, by the way. You see in 2024, it's 2,300. In 2023, it's 2,500. We are struggling for inventory. Last time I checked, this is not the most up-to-date data. Last time I checked, our inventory for both single families and condos was around 2.6 months. So this is what I'm saying to sellers. Right now, I'm going back and forth here, by the way, so if you're going too far, let me know. I'm saying to sellers, right now, your house is appreciating because there's no inventory. That's the only reason. It's a short-term reason for appreciation, which you never want. You always want long-term reasons for appreciation. You want the economy to be strong. You want schools to be good. You want lots of jobs in the area. So that's healthy appreciation, right? Short-term appreciation, what happened in 2021? Interest rates were ridiculous. Short-term reason for appreciation because demand went through the roof. Right now, if you look at the number of homes sold year over year, Philly has been in a housing recession the last 3 years because the number of homes being sold has just gone down and down. However, you look at if you looked at a graph with prices, you would see it going up. Which, if you just show, and this is where the data tells a million stories, right? You're showing one graph about prices going up, people are going to think that the market's good, it's healthy, prices are continuing to go up. However, when you look at the amount of homes sold, we had less homes sold last year than in 2008. So there was more consumer confidence in 2008 than there was last year. So again, I'm going to use the word manipulate because I can't think of any other word. You do have to manipulate data to get your point across to a seller. So if I'm having price reduction conversations, I'm not showing them that prices are up. I'm showing them that inventory is down. I'm showing them things that are going to help me tell my story, right? So as you can see, inventory is super low year over year. This is a great graph to show. I'm trying to get a massive head out of the way, but it's not happening.
It's not
I was gonna ask if they had condo inventory.
Yeah, condo inventory. This is year over year. Now, interestingly, condos have actually been outperforming single family homes the last couple of months, which is weird. That never happens. Why do we think that is? What could be a reason?
Affordability.
Easier. If you want to be in a nice location, it's cheaper to buy a condo.
Baby boomers are empty nesters and are coming back to the city.
Big time.
Yeah.
People are cashing out in the burbs and they're moving and they want to be close to the city, so they're buying as well. I don't know, like I know around Society Hill in that area, Wash Square West, ton of empty nesters are buying them. Ton of them. So inventory for condos is actually, we have more condos for sale than 2024, but not as much as 2023. Pending for single family. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's also easier to build condos and increase the number of inventory because you can build up.
Yeah.
We have a few height restrictions on zoning as opposed to building on existing infrastructure or subdivisions. And there's not a lot of vacant lots.
Yeah, very good. So pending for single families. What's interesting about this, and this is when you just have to kind of tie the pieces together. We don't have as many pending sales as 2024 right now. But if you look, right, remember this, that it's in the middle. If you look at the amount of inventory we have, the absorption rate is higher. We have less homes for sale, but we have less homes for sale than we did in 2024. But when you look at the pendants, actually doing pretty damn well. So again, the story that I'm telling is yes, we have low inventory. Sellers are pricing their home well, and it's in good condition, and it's in a good location. Homes are selling, right? So this is something that's interesting to look at and show you sellers. Again, here is condos pending for 2023. Another reason why I love this site. So you can go on new listings and it's new pendants for the week. That will tell you what the market's going to be like in 2 months' time. Everyone else, usually when they're looking at data, is looking at this number. If you look at new listings versus new pendants, and you're like, oh, okay, the number is going up and up, that means in 2 months' time, the number of closed sales is going to be going up. So, for example, like I look at this, and then I look at new listing versus new pendant, because it tells a different story, right? Again, tell me if I'm going too quick here. We make sure.
Are you disaggregating all of this data by price points then?
No, this one is just generic. This is just every single family home possible and pending. You can break it down into like low inventory, what's median price selling. I don't do that for listing appointments. I just think it's too much. But you can break it down on this website in price points.
So quick question.
Of course.
Like when you're also looking at it, I know we're like carving out a specific point in time, but from a trend perspective, right? Because that's the other way to look at this line. It definitely looks like we're heading in the right direction overall.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to have a crazy. Listen. Disclaimer: if rates go down, drop down dramatically, or it's going to go crazy. If
Where do you
rates
think that number is? You think it's 6.2? Like
if they go down to sixes, low sixes, it will be crazy.
But FHA is low.
Inventory is still down.
What's that?
The inventory is still down. They'll look at.
I think last year, beginning, Jan or Feb, there was a time when the rates went down to like, I think 5.7, and we saw like a crazy uptick.
Yeah, it's so, and I'll come down to rates in a second because rates is a very, very interesting conversation. Pending condos there. This is they take a couple of things. What's the absorption rate? What's the inventory? What's the average days on market? And they give you an indicator of how the housing market is performing. You can see here, this is the cutoff. So 30 is the cutoff. When it goes there, it's a buyer's market. Anything north of 40 is very strong. Right now, they have it scored at 34, and that's basically because there's just not enough transactions happening because there's not enough inventory. Long story short. Okay, so that's for condos, and again, you can see condos are outperforming. This was down to like 30 about a month ago, and this was up to 36. Weird that condos are outperforming, but I like it. I'm here for it. So this is new pendants. This is the one that I look at all the time, right? So if you see, we had great activity in November, December. Some people are arguing that November has been the start of the spring market for the last 2 years. One thing that I know people are worried about is the spring seemed to start early January. We had tons of pendants. Hope it doesn't end early. We don't know. So look, you can see down here, this is the lowest of the low. Always is because it's New Year's. But ever since then, for the most part, we've had an upward trend in activity. Now, last week went down. Again, not really sure why that is. And again, looks like a much worse drop-off. 172 to 150. So just be careful about when you sprout out this data, just look a little bit deeper. All right, so that's good. Pending count has gone up. In number of listings went down, but number of pendings went up. That's a great trend, right? This is condos. Again, it went down, has gone up. So look at that. Pendings, new pendings have actually outperformed new listings hit the market. It's insane. It really is. This is boring. This is median days on market. Again, condos are outperforming single family homes. You've got 77 days for condos and 98 days for single family homes. And then this is usual. This is just the number of homes that are decreasing, have price decreases in the market. Anything around 35% is what typically happens in America. This has been pretty stable. So this one, don't worry about this one. This is just a list and absorb. What is good to do is to look at, you take the overall number of inventory available, and then you divide that by homes pending, it will give you the absorption rate. Correct me if I'm wrong here, I think anything north of 20 indicates a seller's market in absorption rate. Anything less than 20%, so 20% of the inventory is being absorbed, that indicates a soft market. We've been about 30 to 40% for a bit now. All right, that's my boring bit on data. I love this thing. Even if you just send, so it sends reports out for you. Let me show you. So I put all my sellers on these reports. They get a update every single week. It tells them what's going on in the market. It looks nice, has my shameful face on it. And then it just gives you like a good, basic information about what's going on in the market. Fantastic for sellers. Really, they love it, I find.
They get that every week.
Get it every week. And what I like about it is you could do this too. So you could do previous buyer campaigns, right? So that's people who have bought that will eventually sell. You could do new client default campaigns. So if you get someone that just is interested about it, sign them up, and then seller campaigns. You can see who's opened it, how many times they've opened it. Very good, right?
What's your login and password?
Yeah, JP has it now. So, all right, that's national. Let's talk about rates. It's a shit show, pardon my French, but it's a mess right now. There is a lot more that goes into it, but there's two things, and this is I got this from the housing wire. There are two things that are going on with rates. Inflation needs to stay down. Spending needs to go down. So we need to stop. We need the economy to not spend as much, right? Because then the Fed are going to say, okay, the economy is weak. We need to boost it up a little bit. People see that we're just spending. The Fed will not lower the rates, in my opinion. Okay.
And people are spending.
People are spending.
Most ever.
But reports this week it has softened a little bit. It was good. So hopefully that trend continues, but credit card debt's through the roof.
Yeah.
Affordability is through the roof. Something needs to budge. However, here's the downside, and this is why. So I'm getting questions about rates all the time. They're not going to drop dramatically anytime soon because we don't have the inventory. Well, actually, if they drop anytime, like let's say they drop half a point, we don't have the inventory to support it. We're going to be back in 2021, which would be great for a hot second, and then we'll be back in this mess 2 to 3 years from now. So we need, like the economy, we need interest rates to gradually go down, and we need inventory to keep on building up. That is the creme de la creme. I don't think rates can drop in the first 2 quarters. I just don't, not dramatically anyway. I don't see them dropping in the first 2 quarters. They may drop in the second half of the year. Go ahead.
Doesn't demographics play the biggest role here? Because if you look at the volume of homes that are owned by baby boomers, right, who historically have purchased property 3-4%, psychologically to get them to sell, they're going to say, why am I going to sell something that's already paid off and pay 6% wherever I go?
Yeah.
So isn't there some sort of legislation that needs to be discussed related to taxation, property taxes after a certain age, like at 65 or at 60, which would then incentivize that demographic, which owns the majority of housing stock.
It would be great, but it's not that. I don't think it. It's right now, and Gary Keller said this. You got to work on the 4 Ds: debt, divorce,
Diamonds.
diamonds,
Diamonds.
Slowness.
yeah.
It's
So you
five-
got to work on those 4. This market, and we're going to see this for the next 30 years. We are going to have, at least I think for the next 10 years, people who need to sell and need to buy. People that want to buy, want to sell. Man, why would I? Right? I think it was something crazy like 56% of people have less than 5% mortgage. Insane,
That's
right?
crazy.
And they got nowhere to go because no inventory.
Right.
Which is again one of the reasons why we can't have rates drop dramatically. Go ahead, sir.
I was gonna say, going along the line, as far as what we look out for, I was door knocking on Saturday, and 5 of the people who lived in that development that I was door knocking all just had babies within the last 6 or 7 months, and all of them are looking to move.
Yeah. And that's my argument. So for people that say, so let's talk about this. Talk about buyers that are, well, let's talk about sellers that are like, why would I move? Right? I always say to them, sounds like a wonderful life, you being in prison because you have an interest rate of 2.5%. That sounds great. You must have a very long time left on this earth. You must know that. I am. I'm funny with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like you're gonna die. I'm like. I'll be honest. Listen, I have made decisions in my life. Your life comes up quicker than you can expect, and something needs to happen. You should never, unless you love what you do, should never be held by interest rates. That's not what life's about, right? Don't get me wrong. There's probably more factors in it, and if you can't afford to go somewhere, if you can't. There's nowhere to go, that's different. But don't tell me you want to stay just because the rates are low. That's like me saying I want to stay in a relationship that I'm miserable at because you've got a nice bathroom. Like sort of random. You know what I mean? I have no idea what that is. Just tell you what I mean. That's what I'm saying to sellers. What I'm saying to buyers right now is I'm like, listen, can you afford to move right now? If the answer is yes, do you think the home that you want to buy right now will be worth more than it is right now in a year? Yes or no? Answer is always yes. Well, then you need to buy now. Because you sit there and wait for rates to drop. How many more people do you think is having that conversation? How many more people are saying the same thing that you are? And then what happens when competition goes through the roof?
Yeah, prices go up.
No shit, Sherlock, right? Like, I'm not saying that, but I'm trying, like, I'm ask powerful questions, right? Get them to say what you want to say to them. But that's the question I'm having. I'm like, now listen, if you can't afford the down payment, let's work with a lender. Let's figure that out. Let's put a plan together so you can buy. But you don't need to wait. If you can afford to buy right now, you need to buy right now. Because that's the way life works, right? People saying to me, what about prices? Like, our prices are going to drop anytime soon. So the Gary Keller slide of the price appreciation, right? The long-term appreciation average is 4% every single year. And right now, what's the new update on? Is it 9% rolling? Above the trend line.
Well, it's about 10%.
Okay. So we're 10% above the trend line of, you want how prices to grow like the economy, stable, right? You don't want to see dramatic increases. So right now we're 10% above the long-term appreciation line, which tells you that homes are inflation, that home prices are inflated. However, we have 2.6 months worth of inventory in Philadelphia. We need that to double for it to be a healthy market. How long do you think it takes for inventory to double?
Years.
Well, well, inventory increases when there's number one, new construction or renovations coming onto the market.
Yeah.
And you can see what the construction pipeline is by looking through the permits and open data sources. But the question is, are investors continuing to invest in the market? Are new investors coming into the market? For example, B2 just moved out of Philadelphia. They were the number one high volume new construction developers. They're moving down to the shore. What was the reason for that? And when it comes to developments, what are the economies of scale? What's the cost of construction is so high? The complexities of the city's L&I zoning tax abatements. So that all impacts a lot of the development. Also, sellers have to list, right? And they're listing because of the 4Ds that we just talked about. And some of them are waiting for interest rates to drop so that they can anticipate higher net profitability because they assume that buyers are going to make higher offers because of increased purchase powers. But then they also have to find other properties, and that depends on the type of seller that's listing. And then the government has to create a more efficient process for their liquidation of their assets through the land bank. So that's something that the government is working on, as well as affordability development that they're kind of conceptualizing right now.
Permits have gone through the roof for new construction. Homes are being completed, the labor market is strong, but new builds being done is a big question. The labor market is actually keeping inflation pretty good. The labor market softens, we will see inflation go up. That's one of the Logan, whatever his name is, that does the housing wire. That's his big thing. Labor market softens, we are in trouble. And that's why everything that's going on right now, that's an opportunity, right? That new construction, America's had not enough new construction for the last 10 years. That they need more homes built. An opportunity right now is prices go up, like you were saying, construction costs and new construction's moving out in the area, then there is definitely an opportunity for youth market to exist in home sales. Right? There is an opportunity there for you to put yourself as an existing home sale expert if you want to. Go ahead, sir.
Keep on, I was gonna interrupt you a second.
Thank you. It's one of those that needs to keep an eye on labor, needs to keep an eye on how many homes are being built, opportunities. There needs to be more incentives for builders to build, right, to make the numbers work. Otherwise, they're going to go elsewhere, which we don't want. We want people coming in. Philly's always been beneficial because of our surrounding states, right? We've always had lower cost of living. New Jersey, Washington, New York, right? So we often get people feeding into this. If our city had a good school system, and they did something with the Navy Yard and boosted that up, holy shit, would be the next New York in no time. That is what's stopping this. I'm gonna say, but that's what's stopping this city being New York a year from now.
I think the education system here is like, it depends on your zip code because the city of Philadelphia controls the general funding of the property taxes, and they distribute it based on the median incomes, median house valuations on the property assessments. So you have some of the best schools in Philadelphia and then some of the worst. So there's a inequitability, and so if you're not in charter schools, you're not in private schools, or you're not in a good zip code, then there's unfair equitable distribution of the property taxes for the education system. So people think Philly has a bad education system. We actually have great and then bad, very good and very bad.
Overall, bad. Like in general, like, I'm not talking about charter schools. I agree with you. Like there's great little pockets, but overall, we're one of the weakest. Like it's terrible. It's someone from that came from education. I came over in Philly and I went to go look into schools and start working there, and I was like, oh, thank you. I like found out how much they paid, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'll do something else.
The question about lending, right? The lender side, the credit lending side. I've heard a lot about how tight it is from a lot of folks, just saying that, you know, they're very restricted. Banks are not willing to lend on seconds, and like the rates are extremely high for, you know, rehab loans and just in general.
Yeah, I would say for investments, it is difficult, but for the general public, that they're not finding any, not that I've read anyway.
Have you tracked mortgages and just seen how many new mortgages, and what does that data look like?
That looks healthy. It's definitely low because of what's going on. You know, but it's healthy. It's the gap. I can't remember what the name of the between the 10-year yield and what's the other one? Not the gap close. Yeah. No, it's I will pull that up in a minute. No, it's very important. Yeah, it's very important because you don't want the gap between a 10-year treasury yield and something else, mortgage. I can't remember what it's called. You don't want it to be too much, which last year it was. Now it's about 3% different. So you want that to be close. But I will get back to that. Before you get into
Don't worry about my question.
I'll screw you.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
I was curious, like what your thought is about, like new construction is wonderful, and I understand how that plays.
Debatable.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Like green construction, like never, especially new construction.
Yeah.
But just the price point, and it makes sense, of course, builders don't want to build, you know, affordable housing, but having luxury housing in Kensington isn't necessarily helping the affordability in America.
Just, unfortunately, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, it's just like you need those sellers to sell in the suburbs who can afford the new construction, but they don't want to.
Yeah, like the luxury market has been booming the last couple of years because they're not as affected in the economy. So that's why A, builders are building that high, and B, it just makes sense to build that high. When you look it up on paper, that's why there needs to be those more incentives. Like, I think that'd be a great opportunity for the city to build new homes in the 200, 300,000 price point. But the city needs to give something to builders to do that.
Right.
Yes, but so so the land bank has an RFP where you have to be a minority developer, and then they give blocks and subdivisions to these developers to build affordable housing. But the affordable housing is like 2 bedrooms to ask for 300 or 350, but they are cop blocking. I mean, they're like blocking buyers agents from even coming in because they'll be like, oh, it's first come first served. There's no negotiations. You have to work with our in-house sales teams. Buyers agents don't like stay out of the way. There's no negotiation potential. And then these people that are coming in, they're making like 70K. If you're trying to attack poverty or increase the base, you need to build $150,000 to $300,000 houses, and the cost of construction, that's not possible. You have to take existing industrial hubs and actually retrofit them to make them into like smaller condos that are affordable condos for lower income people that are like low mid income.
Yeah, I always talk about like what's with all this market, with everything that's going on, what is stuff that I can control, right? And I can control the narrative of what's going on, which is why I like looking at this stuff, because I can talk to buyers and sellers, educate them about what's going on, right? Were you about to be on that?
It was just going back to what you said as far as controlling it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, if you're not following this information and studying this information, you should be. And you mentioned at the very beginning how many people are providing this information.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, our team, we just did a video about a week and a half ago because there were markets putting information out there saying, about the DMV area, that there's 8,000 properties currently being listed and 10,000 in the market, which is true. But 3 months ago, there was 7,983 homes being listed and 11,000. So while that information is correct, and you can learn it and be able to present it and educate people and show them context, it goes a long way.
Yeah, my favorite question to listen upon is, do you know what's going on in the market? They say no, I have no idea. That's great, because I can just give them a simple, and I don't care about it too much. And then if they go in on what's happening nationally, I'm like, that's great, but it's not Philly at all. And they're like, the inventory's going up. I'm like, no. So that's where you can, again, not make them feel like an idiot, but guide them, right? And I'm always saying, what data can I use to help me get my point across? So let's talk about this real quick. Incentives for sellers, the 3-2-1 or 3-2-1 buyout. Fantastic for, especially if they have enough money where they can have their own lender and fund it. That's fantastic for new construction. That's what's getting stuff sold. I am huge on price reductions. If your homes aren't selling right now, I think as an agent, you have 5 opportunities at max to do a price reduction. Go hard. I always say to people, let's just probably say we're in the $500,000 price point. I always say to them, we have exhausted. Actually, I'll pick a different one. Let's say we're at 535. I always say to my sellers, we have exhausted the 525 to 550 price point. We need to enter a new price point. So at the very, very least, I need you to go down to 525. However, I think if you go down to the 500 number, we're going to hit more people. Why? Because we're going to appear in 450 to 500 search as well. I'm always big about getting price drops, 25,000, 50,000, depending on how big the price point is, right? I'm always big about changing the price, that price increment. If they say to me, we're at 235 and they want to go down to 230, I'm like, don't bother. Let's just let's leave it on the market for another 30 days and let's do a bigger price reduction. But I'm always trying to enter a different price point. I am giving them so much data. I set them up with a bright MLS search of homes that are comparative in their neighborhood. And they see stuff go pending. And I do not shy away from the conversation. They send me an email like, yeah, this thing went pending. I'm like, yeah, it did. Look at the kitchen. I'm like, look at the kitchen, look at the bathroom. Oh yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Yeah. how much would you have to spend to get up to that point? Probably about 100,000. You're probably about 100,000 off that, aren't you? Again, I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to them that way. I'm saying it in a very nice way.
So you put your sellers on,
I put my sellers on
that.
on auto, yeah, right, and that's what we're searching.
So they'll see, okay.
But then what if it's the inverse? What if they have the nicest kitchen and it's not selling and they see something?
Well, then you need to know the data.
Yeah,
You need to know why it's not selling.
Yeah.
And be confident about it. My favorite thing to do, and again, I'm cutting this down because we don't have much time. My favorite thing to do is to be like, listen, actually, I forgot what my favorite thing to do, because I just looked at it, but it was my favorite thing to do.
3%.
Like price reductions.
MLS. You can't leave tag it like that.
Shit. It was okay too. Price reductions. I welcome. Oh, that's it. I welcome the conversation because I'm like, look, listen, Mr. Seller. And if you don't have these team numbers, use the brokerage's numbers. With all due respect, Mr. Seller, since the time we've been on the market, I've sold 100 homes. 17 numbers, send the brokerage numbers. If you want me to send you those homes, I'll send you them. We know how to sell. I have a proven system that works every single time. I know it's not our marketing. I know it's not my effort. And if they start down your effort, you need to stop the phone call right there and be like, whoa, 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 where is this gap happening? Because the last thing you should be doubting is my effort. Right? And if you've done that, you've messed up in the communication beforehand. Right? So I'm always saying to them, listen, with all due respect, I sold 100 homes since we listed. I know how to sell. Let's look at what we can control. I can't control anything about the location. I can control something about the condition. People are saying it's priced too high based on the condition of the home, right? So, are you willing to do fixes to the home? Are you willing to spend 50,000 on a kitchen? No, I don't have the money. Well, then we have to factor that in.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite line is, and I say this at a listing appointment, or I say this when we're doing price reductions. Listen, it is not impossible, but near on impossible to list a home too low in this market. Why? Because inventory is so low. If inventory was through the roof and we're second guessing at why like this home hasn't sold, that's when we can price it too low, right? But we know that inventory is very low. We know other homes are selling. So what is it? It's price and condition, right? What can we control? Price first is easy and condition, but you don't want to.
Right.
So I'm having that conversation and I'm like, and by the way, like every single bit of feedback, I love sending feedback to sellers. And I'm like, oh, this is good, ignore this. If another home goes pending, oh, this was interesting. Why did that one sell? Maybe it was because it was better backup. I'm proactively having those conversations so that when I do want to do a price reduction conversation, it's not a surprise.
Right.
Right? If your client's surprised at the price reduction conversation. So another good thing I do with sellers is I'm like, listen, we're going to talk every 30 days. We're going to have like a set up phone call every 30 days. In the meantime, I'm sending them feedback. If a showroom gets booked, I forward it to them. I'm like, and it goes to them anyway, but I want them to know I'm on top of it. So if a showroom gets booked, I'm like, woohoo! Like, just send them a silly little message, right? Or if the feedback comes back and then an agent I know doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's like, the home's priced right. I'm like, they're lying. All right. So I'm sending that stuff, but I say to them every 30 days, we will have a price reduction conversation. Or we will have a strategic conversation. And then while I'm hopping on sellers, let me do a couple more things. In the listing appointment, I preemptively tell them how it's going to go. I'm like, listen, when we list the home, it's going to go one of three ways. First 30 days, we have no activity. That is the market telling us that we are at least 5% over ask. Right? Number two, we have anywhere between 5 to 10 showings because you don't need more than any more than 5 to 10 showings to sell a home in Philly. If you have 5 to 10 showings or even more and no one's put an offer in, just means we need to tweak. Just tweak the price, just do something little, right? And then number one scenario is in the first 30 days we've got an offer. Or we've got more than one. And my favorite line is the best price is the one that gets the most offers. Right?
What if with showings you're like less than 5 and we're 15 days in?
I would look at, before I reach out to the seller, I would look at what's going on in the market in the local area. Right, so if there's other things pending and we're not, like, if it's the same everywhere else, like stuff sat on the market active. So that's when you have to look a little bit deep, like you have to dig a little bit deeper for But you'll know, again, it takes 5 to 10 showings to sell home good. That was your question? I did. 2 weeks, if we got nothing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You answer, because usually, I bet if it was me, 15 days. Because most likely, they didn't listen
Yeah.
to the price you told them. So we settled on it.
Then
And in 15 days, I'm like, we had this conversation, so now you.
Yeah, I'll happily drop something in 15 days. If they went so over,
Yeah.
right? Another thing I like saying in this appointment is, listen, the only thing you can control is the price in this process. You can't control my work ethic. You can't control how I work behind the scenes. So when you pick an agent, don't pick an agent on price. Pick an agent that you think you're going to work well with, that they are competent and they can do what they do. And I always give them a price range. I'm like, Mr. Seller, it's anywhere between 500 to 550,000. The higher point, you're going to be testing the market. The lower point, you're going to be hoping for a quick sale, right? But it's your choice. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. I'm a retail agent, which means I get the best price. I get you the best price with the fewest hassles in the quickest amount of time. That's something I like to lean with when I say you decide the price. We look at the data and we come up with the price together. Sometimes if they're way over, I will say, this is more so now, I will say to them as well, I'll be like, listen, if they are dreaming about the price, I will say to them, look, what I'll do is over the next 2 weeks while we get this on the market, I am going to send it out to my team. If we get overwhelmed with feedback that the listing is too high, we should make the price adjustment before we go on the market. Always works. Not always, but for the most part it works. I'm like, yo, we're getting bad feedback on this, right? I'm preemptively saying, well, we've got this wrong. Yeah. So I'll sign listing contracts TBD, and then I'll say, let's make a decision on the day before we go live. The market change weeks over week. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Neighborhoods, 19146 in Center City is the hardest zip code to sell in by far. Anything over a million is doing well. 1 million to 1.5 or 800 to 1.5 million is crushing it. We are starting to see stuff in the low price point sell as well. South Philly is doing well. Brewerytown, it's tough. Saturated. Point Breeze, saturated, right? HGTV builders, people competing against builder prices. It's tough to sell something in Point Breeze right now or anywhere in that area. Northern Liberty seems to be doing well. Fishtown seems to be doing well. Brewerytown, I think, is tough because it went through that revamp. COVID happened at the wrong time for it. Then it just became Temple number 2. And renters don't care about commuting. So the community's just going down. In my sense, my offended people, so that's what I do a lot of expired listings. Most of my expired listings are in Brewerytown, and I'm competing against 15 other homes to get it sold. And at that point, it's just that we need to be lower than you.
When Vince drove out and went to the shore, when Vince finally left and went to the shore, he reduced the price of a lot of his listings because I was doing 2 new construction at the time.
Yeah.
And we had them ready to list at 525. His was down the street from ours, and just to get rid of them, he put them at 400. Yeah. And it destroyed a lot of stuff over there. So they're.
What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say Brewerytown doesn't have like the sexy commercial music corridor entertainment lifestyle that Fishtown has.
Agreed. So we cut on the rates a little bit. Again, I would say I don't believe they're going to come down in the first 2 quarters, maybe in the next 2 quarters, and tell people we want stable reductions. We don't want dramatic. We'll be in the same spot. I'd love a quick year, but then I'm going to be screwed in 2 years onwards, right? Go ahead.
What do you see in the short sale market? We see more?
No, sorry, don't reason. My bad. I know a lot of people have equity, but there's more people that have equity in their homes than I don't want to say ever, but I know a lot of people have a ton of equity in their homes, so there's less foreclosure rates. It's happening, sure. It's happening in multifamilies, I know that. Multifamily markets like in Texas, I know they're suffering right now because rates drop. One thing to keep an eye on for rates for investments, in my opinion here, is that there seems to be a trend with builders right now. They want to build like hotels, essentially, long-term stays. And that's going to potentially impact the rental market. Any other questions on the market, how to leverage it? I always use it in my first point when I'm doing a listing presentation or a buyer consultation. I really think it sets you apart and makes you very competent, right? And then you can show off the confidence afterwards. I love just spouting out little pieces of data here and there. It really helps. Don't dive into it too deep. Use it, be dangerous enough that you can talk and advise your buyers and sellers about it. It's $200, the Altos research. It's so worth it. I would never not do it again. The rest of them, there's some of them. There's Get Smart Charts, which is $25 a month. It shows you every month what the data is, but you're a month behind. In my opinion, you're a month behind. So, you have any questions? Any more questions?
Leading with the market stats, would it depend on who's in front of you? Like somebody that's analytical, they appreciate the market stats, but then somebody that's not. You still
Yeah.
deep into the
I
market.
always get a sense of what they're like during the talk. That's when I'm like, is this dude a driver? Is this dude analytical? Or what's going on here? I will always touch on the market at the beginning. But if they start asking questions like where you can see the market in the future, that's when I start getting analytical. Some people, so another thing I like doing in the listing appointment is I start off, I do the tour, that's where I build a relationship. Make jokes. I'm like, who's this? Is this your daughter? She's ugly. I'm joking. But you wouldn't have thought of that. Thank you. I make jokes around there, and then when I sit down, I will say to them, what are the 3 most important questions you want me to cover? And then you'll get a good idea of what people are doing. It's a great question, and let them see you write it down. Like that always helps. It just shows that you're custom. The best thing to do as a negotiator, as a salesperson, is know all of it, and then tailor your presentation to whoever you think is in front of you. Make sense? Yeah. And marketing, like talk about marketing. We are marketers. That should be our titles. We market products. That's what we do. Is there another question? All right, I tried to make this as exciting as you can about data, so I hope you got a lot from it. And if you have any questions, you want to let me know. Yeah.